Hello and welcome, I'm Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet, and this is Warhammer Wednesdays, where I talk about Warhammer on this channel. If you're new to the channel, I normally talk a lot about Magic the Gathering, as you can see in this shelf here, but also like Warhammer, as you can see on this shelf here. Some of my models downstairs ready for a game later on today or tomorrow, so the shelf's a bit empty. Anyway, as another update, I've just literally put this t-shirt on, so it's pretty creased, because I've been basically naked all day, because it's incredibly hot here in England, so I'm going to drip progressively more and more as I close the window, turn the fan off, all for making this content for you. With that all out of the way, I need to be real with you. This video is called 5 Reasons Warhammer is Better Than Magic, or 5 Ways Warhammer is Better Than Magic. Now, to be honest, it's a more complex and nuanced discussion than that, but if I'd made the video and called it a complex discussion around the nuanced differences between Magic the Gathering and Warhammer, well, the algorithm wouldn't have given a shit and you probably wouldn't have clicked it. So blame yourself and blame our YouTube overlords. It's your fault. It's your fault, you naughty, naughty little squig. And if you think it's clickbait, then you don't understand what clickbait is. I'm not saying that Warhammer is strictly better, because it isn't. I fucking love Magic. If a genie appeared out of a bottle and said you can only play one of these games for the rest of your life, the other one you are barred from playing or collecting, I would snap it off on Magic as the one I could play for the rest of my life in a heartbeat. Magic is my favourite game ever made. However, there are some huge differences that I'd like to compare, and I'm going to frame it in the 5 ways that Warhammer kind of comes out in front of Magic. That said, I could do an accompanying video about 5 ways Magic is better than Warhammer if you want to see that. Tell me in the comment section below. And the reason I've started with the Warhammer angle is A, it's probably a bit more provocative, a bit more engaging, and this is Warhammer Wednesdays. So if I don't do it, the Demons of the War will fucking destroy me. Send help. Number 5. Now, I'm not talking about the lore being strictly better in the sense that the characters or the environment or the worlds or the narrative is better. Far from it. I'm talking about how the companies that own Warhammer treat the narrative and lore compared to how the company that owns Magic the Gathering treats the narrative and lore. Games Workshop loves the world and the lore in which that world is based. They have a subsidiary company called the Black Library who release multiple books a month, sometimes multiple a week, not all of them needing to be read because they're from different series, or which addresses the mainline canon and other things too. The thing that struck me the most about the Black Library books and the constant releasing of them is that a vast majority of them are on audiobook or on Audible, so I've started listening to some on Audible, and then on top of that is the wide net they cast. There is literally crime fiction in the Warhammer universe coming out right now, as well as children's books and other things, including political books about the politics of the world. There are the typical war stories. There's a huge swath of interesting things being done within the Warhammer space, kind of like how the extended canon of Star Wars used to be used once upon a time. They also have graphic novels, short stories, lore inserts in their rulebooks and codices that half of their rulebooks and codices are literally just lore, transcripts of vox messages, radio messages, like diagrams of guns and stuff. It's so rich that you can taste it in the air. Or maybe I'm just sweating too much and I can smell my own stink. Beyond that, Games Workshop have been willing to use their license to let it out to other properties, video game properties, so there are, to varying levels of success and quality, just a proverbial shit ton of Warhammer games, and even the bad ones help to further expand and grow the environment, the aesthetic, the visual and audible hallmarks of the world. We know for a fact, and we all understand if you've engaged with any Warhammer content, that the orcs have a Cockney accent. For those of you who don't know, Cockney is kind of like the common language of or vernacular or accent of the common people of London, as opposed to the posh twats in the castles. I definitely said castles then instead of castles. Am I a posh twat or am I a commoner? I don't know. So it's cool to see the whole lore and the world engaged with through multiple mediums. It is safe to say that Wizards of the Coast have become borderline allergic to cohesive narrative design and lore. The novels of late have varied wildly in quality, from well received to subpar to fucking awful. Oh my god, why does this exist? Please stop.
Final grade on this, it's a failure on all levels. War of the Spark Forsaken is sloppy, poorly written, and hollow prose that does nothing to further the story of Magic the Gathering or to develop its characters. What's more, it contains harmful biphobic elements.
Beyond that, we don't have any video games either, barring some like match 3 shit and like a simplified version of Magic on mobile. We have Arena, which is a video game version of Magic, let's be honest, and we have Magic the Gathering Online, which is a literal like emulation of the card game, but neither of those things really bring any narrative or growth to the world, barring some animations on Arena. We have Magic Legends coming up, not to be confused with Commander Legends, which is an action RPG. I did a video talking about one of the animations they sent me as like a preview almost, but on the whole it looks relatively generic, and I don't know how much focus on lore or story or canon there will be in that, so how much that will matter, we just don't know. In some ways, we could say that it's good that Wizards of the Coast are protective of their intellectual property and they don't want to like bombard us with a load of low quality games, because to be real, a lot of the Games Workshop video games aren't very good, but at the same time, is that really best for your marketing? Is that really best for getting your brand out there and understood as a cohesive brand? Not necessarily. Like I said at the beginning, this is a complex and nuanced discussion where I'm going to say Warhammer wins in certain points, but in reality, there are like back and forth, which I'll go through with every point as well. The Wizards have been good at driving hype. The lead up from like all the prior stories up to War of Spark as a crescendo in the overarching narrative was cool and definitely got people hyped. The story trailers using fully fledged CGI have been, for the most part, fantastic and I've loved them, but hilariously, for example, Dak Faden, a fan favourite, powerful, vintage playable character, was killed off in a brief moment within the war trailer and never mentioned again, not even given a story highlight card or even a mention upon a card.
Brutality.
There are some upsides. Magic the Gathering has cards that can tell the story too, with flavour text and like... Sorry, I waved my hands then, a bit of wind hit me and it was lovely, so I'm just going to do this for a second. Fuck me. Yeah, flavour text, the actual card names themselves, the art can show moments in time. Things like Fatal Push being a good example of just like a moment in time captured upon a card, an abstract almost, instead of a physical object. And that's the thing that Warhammer can never really replicate. You can tell story with your basing and how your miniatures move and dynamic posing and stuff, but really the game pieces themselves don't tell a story like Magic's do. However, with those benefits and positives said, they removed all the free short stories from the mothership, or at least stopped putting them out, should I say. And they went back and retconned the obvious, I say obvious, the heavily hinted at relationship between Nissa and Chandra in one of the novels. It was kind of like explicitly taken away, where they explicitly explained how Chandra was into decidedly masculine men. Basically, they sort of shit all over the goodwill they generated by putting basically a lesbian couple into their game to, I don't know, appease a market where these things aren't wanted. Maybe the conservative viewer. I don't really understand why they did it. It was just shit. There's also a movie in the works, which I don't think Games Workshop have got going, and they've got a Netflix series around Chandra coming. So maybe this will get better over time. Maybe they'll learn from the god-awful novels that surrounded War of the Spark and make better books. Only time will tell. Number 4. Game pieces have multiple applications. Minis aren't just used in Games Workshop games like Warhammer Age of Sigmar and Warhammer 40k. Minis can be used in board games to represent things in RPGs. Dungeons & Dragons, for example, often will want you to play with minis if you can. And let's be real, the minis provided by actual Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast's own property, aren't that great. They're okay at best. Wizards don't make a terrible product, it's just not anywhere near the quality of these things. Where is it? These things. Of course, Space Marines and stuff don't really work for that, but they can be good stand-ins or proxies. Meanwhile, fantasy miniatures can be literal, not stand-ins, but literal creatures on the board as well. Meanwhile, Magic cards, as great as Magic is with its plethora of game modes and ways to play, you can't really take those cards and play any other game. So if you're looking for a respite from Magic, if you're looking not to play an alternative Magic format, you can't just take your cards and use them in another game unless you're just using them to prop up as like doors you can open or something like that, or make a house of cards. You know where I'm going with this. The miniatures here have multiple applications. They can be used in other games. They can also be display pieces, which I'll come to more in my next point, because there's a lot of creativity that goes into the creation of miniatures, so they can be shelf pieces or centerpieces or art projects or entered into competitions for that matter, which is something that Magic doesn't really have for the most part. My third point is that multiple hobbies in one come with Warhammer, where Magic doesn't do that. Building, painting, collecting, playing, competing even in painting tournaments, for example, all of these things come into the wargaming sphere, and especially Warhammer. A lot of these things could apply for many wargames, just Warhammer's the one that I like. Essentially, not only do you build, you get to paint and be creative that way, and not only that, you then get to play with them as well. The building is also not just like build exactly as they say. You can kit bash, you can change, you can repose models, you can do all sorts of wonderful things with them. And whilst I dislike the building part of it, I love all the rest of it. The creative part of the building. I just like building to the instructions, but building them in multiple different poses or changing how they're posed gets me excited. I love it. It's really fun and creative, as is the painting, and I also love playing it. In many ways, this like multiple hobbies in one is something that Warhammer has over pretty much every other hobby I can think of, barring other wargaming, because you get a creative outlet and a gaming outlet. Now, I'm saying it's a benefit, and to me it is a benefit, but in reality, it could be a downside. If, like me, you're not a big fan of the building by numbers part, like especially the early parts, we go building, painting, playing, if you struggle with either of these, it can be a barrier to getting into the game, and I think that might be one of the biggest barriers, other than perhaps cost, that stops people from getting into Warhammer, because they don't like either the first two. So it can be a negative, but for me, it's almost completely a positive, and it's something that Magic can't compete with. Going on from that, we have number 2 on my list, which is aesthetic customization. I actually have a pet peeve about the word aesthetic. I think we use it way too much, so I'm trying to say it less myself, but here I am. Big shout out to one of my Magic the Gathering sponsors, Ultra Pro. These guys and girls and everyone in between make some beautiful like EDH deck boxes. It's my favourite thing that they make, a Sat Tower. I wouldn't do that if there was cards in it. I'm going to fill up all of these with EDH decks. They're beautiful. Deck boxes and sleeves are ways to customise your play experience with Magic, and give some flavour and theme to what you're doing. Same with playmats as well. But beyond that, you're then like not really able to customise your visual experience or how you express yourself. Now, Magic can be incredibly creative. One of the biggest draws to Magic for me, and why I started making so much content, was playing meme decks and building decks in specific ways, whether they be jokes or trying to tune them towards a metagame and being competitive. So from a mechanical perspective, there was a lot of customization and personality. Building an archetype, or building a combo, or building a joke or a meme, all of those things can really infer ownership onto your deck and your cards. I'm not saying it can't. But when it comes to something like Warhammer or Wargaming in general, when you customise how they're built, when you base them in a truly unique way, when you then paint them in a unique paint job, when you then create headcanon around your new dynasty for the Necrons, or your new chap that you've just invented the colour scheme of for your 40k army, those things are creative pursuits that you don't really get with Magic the Gathering. That said, I do want to pause it there a little bit and just stop to say, well, there is an entire creative community that does do customization like this within Magic. There are infamous monolithic presences like Klug altars, or there are the smaller, and I hate to use the word smaller here, but I mean like, Klug is the biggest, right? The smaller creative individuals in this space, people like that Mr. Shy, Adama Ryden Neuromancer, Claire Likes to Doodles, and Claire Likes to Doodle, sorry, and Trey Ball Paints as well. The card I'm showing on screen is a card that was painted by Trey Ball Paints and given to me at GP Seattle, and it was fucking awesome. And of course, I can't leave out people making incredible custom tokens, like the wonderful Inkling Customs, who made some of my emotes for Twitch as well, has made a token of me before looking kawaii with Spice 8 Rack. These people are giving you ways to customise your gaming experience. A lot of artists will have their own tokens on the walls at Magic Fests for sale and stuff. Custom dice, these things exist, but they aren't really in the hands of the average player because they require quite a higher level skill level than it does take to paint your miniatures in a custom colour scheme. So I think that customization exists, and there are creatives doing stuff in this creative space I don't want to ignore, but it's not the thing that the average player can do, and that's why I think Warhammer has an up in that respect. And then finally, for my final point, and this one is the most double-edged sword of a lot of them, is that Warhammer does not have a secondary market in the same capacity or same style as Magic the Gathering. Now, some people think that I hate MTG finance and I hate the idea that cards cost money, which is complete and utter fucking bollocks. It's often a way to, I'm misrepresented by people on Twitter who just are looking to have an argument and gain some clout or whatever. The truth be told is that cards are going to be worth money because they're collectibles, some of them are rarer than others, and some of them are desirable game pieces. So supply will outstrip demand. No, wait, I said the wrong way around. So demand will outstrip supply. The problem I have with Magic the Gathering is when key game pieces, things like the fetch land, which are borderline the fucking board upon which you play the game of chess that is Magic, when those things are kept out of the average player's hands because Wizards of the Coast want to placate collectors by making sure there are cards that remain expensive. That bit fucks me off. Collectible alternate arts, foils, the secret lair alternate foils to cards that are actually readily available, the Godzilla lands for example, or even at a push like foiled Scalding Tarns being worth 4 times what a normal Scalding Tarn would be. I have no problem with that. Fun fact, the way I got into Warhammer with all this stuff and the other 8,000 points of Marines or whatever I've got, the Necrons and the Custodes that are on the way, was because I sold a Legacy deck. Because Legacy decks are stupidly expensive. The point I'm getting at is that Magic the Gathering has a secondary market, which can be a positive if you want your cards to retain some value. But ultimately, I'm here to play a game, build stuff that I like playing with and play with my friends and meet new people and play in tournaments and test myself and get involved with the community. I'm not here for an investment portfolio. I know some people might be, and I don't begrudge you for playing the game of MTG Finance itself. I only begrudge people, you know, claiming they've got some insider knowledge and buyouts that fuck over players who want to get into Commander or Legacy or Modern or whatever. With Warhammer, the cards or the game pieces, as we should say, aren't rare, essentially. There are some stuff that's out of print. There are some things on Forge World that, you know, are a little bit more expensive. Sure, those things definitely exist. And the hobby isn't cheap, but compared to Magic, it feels cheap. Because eBay is just full of stuff that is just cheaper than what you'd buy it for in the box, unless it's really well painted. In essence, I sold that Legacy deck and bought a shit ton of Warhammer. But if I then sold that Warhammer to try and buy back the Legacy deck, I wouldn't go up. Even if I waited 5 years for some appreciation on rarer pieces, which doesn't really happen in Warhammer, I could never go back the other way. That sounds like a downside, and to an extent it is, because you're investing in these pieces and not getting more money out of it. But ultimately, I expect that of most items. When I buy a video game for like £40, £50, £60 or whatever brand new, I don't expect to be able to sell it down the line for more. I mean, that happens with rarer released games and special editions and shit sometimes, but that's not my expectation. My expectation is to get the pieces and get some hobby time out of them. In the case of Warhammer, putting them together, painting them, displaying them, taking pictures of them and sharing them on the internet for people to gawk at, or fucking rolling some dice and measuring some distances. That's what I want out of them. It's the same thing for Magic. Whilst I understand that cards can be expensive, and we know that cards will be expensive, and that's like okay, I don't really mind. I do like the fact that Warhammer doesn't have this secondary market that like spikes the prices on shit. Look at it this way. We just had a leaked rumour. I say rumour. It's almost all but confirmed because of some sheets we've seen. But Terminator models for Space Marines, these things, Terminators, they weren't so good. But they're upping the wound count from 2 to 3 per model, which is going to make them significantly better. Now, I was talking on my Discord when this happened, and I was looking to buy a box of them because the Magic player in me thought, we have some information, they're going to sell out and they're going to spike. It's like the FOMO thing. I want to get them now at their current price before they spike, and they're not. They'll sell out a little bit, I guess, because more people will be picking them up. That's just how the economy works. But Terminators aren't out of print. They're not in an old set. They're not like they will just get printed more and put on shelves again. And that's kind of refreshing, coming out of playing so much, being so invested in Magic. I guess the point I'm getting out with all these points is that they all have double sides, right? They're double sides? They all have pros and cons. Not all of them are strictly better things about Warhammer. But it's really interesting to come out of like being a sort of balls deep, nose deep in Magic and getting some perspective and being like, wow, here's another hobby. It has a lot of comparable things, a lot of crossover in the Venn diagram of nerds. But there's some very severe differences too, which allows you to sort of get some perspective on each of the hobbies. I'll talk more about this going on in more videos and more streams as I learn stuff. Like, Warhammer's not perfect. Games Workshop have done some fuck-ups with their lore recently as well. Black Library fired a writer, supposedly for defending his remarks about, you know, equality among sexual preferences. So they're not perfect either. And I'll talk about that. But I just think the whole comparison is super interesting. And I hope the 5 points that I've said in this video that I've framed as Warhammer's better than Magic, I hope at least with all the context I'm giving you, makes it interesting for you as well. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and smash that fucking bell as well, because it makes my nipples tingle. But also, tell me in the comment section below, do you think I was right or wrong? Do you think any of these bullet points are actually... Fuck it, list 1 to 5 and tell me, which ones do you think actually benefit Magic? Because the secondary market thing might be right up your street. You might want to play like baby's first stock market with Magic cards, and that's not a value judgment. And you might just want your investment to be able to be sold off later down the line to get your money back. Which I guess was nice. When I sold my Legacy deck and got more money back than what I bought it for, that was nice. I'm not going to say it wasn't. So, let me know in the comment section below what you think. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have certain things you want to see on Warhammer Wednesday, specifically about Warhammer in future, whether that be army guides, painting guides, or any of that good stuff, let me know in the comment section below as well. I do read all my comments. I try not to sometimes, because they can be really harsh. But on these videos, I tend to be quite positive. I've been Vince, also known as PleasantKenobi on the internet. Catch me outside. I don't normally say that. What does that even fucking mean? I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta for now.
Thank you.